Okay, everybody, the last scenario is scenario 3, okay? Says you're going to set the carbon dioxide emissions rate to 9.8 gigatons, which is where our starting point is. Our timestamp is going to be 10 years, and we're going to be showing carbon dioxide emissions increasing by 0.2 gigatons each 10 years for this scenario. So you're going to be, instead of putting the arrow down, you're going to be moving the arrow up. Excuse me. Again, this is on your paper where it says we're looking at scenario 3. You're going to be able to have your carbon dioxide emissions just increase by 0.2 every time. And then we'll be able to record our temperature. Okay. So to begin, it has us at 9.8. For 2020, I'm going to increase it. So push the button up. I'm going to change my timestamp to 10 years, and then I'm going to click step forward. Okay, stepping forward. Now for 2020, that means that I have a temperature of 58.25, and that's in degrees Fahrenheit, but we can just put 58.25. Okay, so moving up again to 10.2 carbon dioxide emissions. I'm going to step forward. It's going to give me a temperature of 58.75. Again, I'm looking at the red dot and I'm reading the temperature over here on my graph. For 2040, I'm moving my temperature up to 10.4. I'm clicking step forward and I get a temperature reading of 59.0. For 2050, I'm moving my carbon dioxide emissions to 10.6. I'm clicking step forward and I get a temperature reading of 59.25. For 2060, I have 10.8. I'm going to click step forward and I get a temperature reading of 59.5. For 2070, I'm going to move my carbon emissions up to 11. I'm going to click step forward and I get a temperature reading of 59.75. For 2080, I'm clicking my carbon dioxide emissions to 11.2, stepping forward, and I have a temperature reading of 60. For 2090, I'm moving up to 11.4. I'm stepping forward, and I get a temperature reading of 60.5. I'm moving up again in carbon dioxide emissions to 11.6. I click step forward and I get a temperature reading of 60.75. For the last entry in your data table for 2110, I'm clicking my carbon dioxide emissions to 11.8. I click step forward and I have a temperature reading of 70.0. If I click step forward one more time, it tells me we have finished this scenario. Record your data in your lab report. If you do, and if you take a look at the graph that has been provided for you, you see that our temperature also increases. So for each of these scenarios that we have seen, our temperature is increased. And so when you get to your conclusion questions, it says summarize how the carbon emissions affected the atmospheric temperature in each of the 3 scenarios. Hint, when you look at the 3 graphs, temperature goes up in all 3. So you want to explain why and which scenario did the temperature go the highest or the lowest. So it tells you right here, we know that the temperature went up for all 3 scenarios, but give me a little more information. Which one went up the least? Which one went up the most? Okay. Number 2 says, was your hypothesis supported by your results or not? That's where you're going to go back to number 1 on your paper where you wrote a hypothesis, and you're going to say, were you right? Were you wrong? Last of all, it says, explain the difference between greenhouse effect and global warming. You can use Google to do research. We talked about this in my Google Meet. And then last of all, name 3 sources of atmospheric carbon dioxide. So what are 3 ways that we are putting more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere? Okay. that's all I have for scenario 3 and the conclusion for activity 3.05, the atmosphere and you.